It won't surprise you to hear me say that China has rapidly become a leading economic, military, and technological power because under President Xi Jinping, we're seeing China massively increase its involvement in global development, in global governance, and not just regionally, but across the world. The Asia Society Policy Institute has been conducting research to figure out what all this really adds up to and whether Western countries like the United States are right to be so concerned about what China is doing. What we found is a pattern of China putting itself in position to effectively insert its own standards into key aspects of the international system. Many of the most striking examples are tied to China's pursuit of rapid technological advancement, which in turn has generated an intense push to secure international technology standards that serve Chinese interests. China's investing very heavily in artificial intelligence and big data collection, in quantum computing, and in semiconductors. Just since 1991, China's spending on R&D has grown from $13 billion to at least $380 billion in 2020. In fact, in early 2021, the government pledged to increase China's annual R&D spending by at least 7% per year, every year, over the next 5 years. But what's less visible but could prove hugely consequential is that Beijing is actively seeking to influence or even define the technical standards that will govern these cutting-edge technologies. Because setting standards can yield significant potential advantages in commercial and even in military terms by shaping the contours of next-generation technology. To do this, China has taken a two-pronged approach. The first prong is building up its influence in international technical standards bodies. And China does this in a couple of ways, placing Chinese nationals in key leadership and staff positions, increasing Chinese firms' representation at meetings and having them vote as a bloc, chairing key committees and working groups, and using its economic influence to rally other states to vote for Chinese proposals. The second prong for this standard setting uses the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and its Digital Silk Road program. Now, the Digital Silk Road is a program that helps China to establish standards on the ground through market share, so to speak. In other words, it spreads commercial digital systems that use proprietary Chinese standards. China also exports its standards through a range of tech products, data centers, all kinds of initiatives. And they incorporate many of the emerging technologies, the facial recognition systems, the big data analysis, the 5G telecoms, the AI surveillance systems. These all go into creating smart cities, and these are all technologies whose standards remain up for grabs. But there's more to China's game plan than just multilateral influence or marketing high-tech systems. There's a philosophy that China is pushing now. It's the notion of cyber sovereignty. The Chinese describe it as, quote, respecting each country's right to choose its own internet development path, to choose its own internet management model, to choose its own public policies on the internet. Okay, that sounds good, at least until you stop to think that this approach is fundamentally at odds with the principle that the internet should remain open, it should remain global, and that information should flow freely across borders. China's push for cyber sovereignty has profound implications for freedom of the internet, for how data will be handled, and for human rights. But its approach is gaining traction within the United Nations system and other regional organizations. Let's face it, authoritarian governments like the idea that they can shield their citizens from inconvenient information from overseas, that they can restrict data in their own country, but still access it from the West. And we're seeing China help these governments to employ sophisticated surveillance and censorship technology. So Beijing has found allies in its effort to redefine cyber sovereignty as somehow a human right in a way that strengthens the state's control and undermines the universalist approach to the internet that's been championed by the US and by other like-minded states. The net effect of these changes and this push for cyber sovereignty is a shift towards a system that prioritizes so-called collective rights, but as defined by governments. This comes at the expense of the individual rights and freedoms that are basic tenets of the liberal international order. Beyond that is a further risk, namely that the world will wind up divided into two opposing camps, two different systems, a bifurcated information and communications technology environment. Now, competition is one thing, it's great, but the emergence of incompatible systems would slow future technological innovation, it would disrupt the digital economy, and it would exacerbate all kinds of other problems. So ASPI has been wrestling with the question of how the world's democracies should deal with China's effort to reshape the global digital landscape. How can we prevent the deck from being stacked against the West by China's push for cyber sovereignty and export of Chinese tech standards? Well, spoiler alert, the answer partly lies in a few of the following things. Government and industry developing a coordinated strategy towards international technological standard setting. Another step is to facilitate broad participation in standard setting processes by civil society, by experts, and by businesses, big and small. Developing a coordinated approach with like-minded partners and incorporating the issues of internet governance in our diplomatic and economic initiatives is going to be critical in preserving an open and free internet and pushing back against this authoritarian trend. ASPI has just published a report called Stacking the Deck that addresses these concerns and explores these options. So I hope you'll visit us at asiasociety.org to see for yourself. And if you'd like to learn more about Asia, about ASPI, and about our work, please subscribe to our channel and follow us online. Thank you very much.